Because they're sitting at home and not at school right now, you might think that the kids are loving it, having the time of their lives. But as many parents actually do know, for many of them, this is a really stressful time. Sports have been canceled. They can't see their friends. It's been a lot of change in a very short amount of time. Here to talk about that stress and what we can do as parents, we have Dr. Renee Renardi, a licensed psychologist and most importantly, a mom joining us. Thank you so much you usually join us in studio. We're doing Skype interviews now, but you have very valuable information. So thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Okay, I think this is such an important topic right now. I have a 7 and 11-year-old, and especially the 7-year-old's been asking a ton of questions. These are stressful times for adults, but also stressful for kids. Is that correct?
It sure can be. And that's where it's important to talk to our kids about COVID-19, answer any questions that they may have in child appropriate language. And it's also important, too, to limit the access that they're having to news. There's a lot of things that can be presented on the news that a child may misinterpret. And maybe they don't even ask about it because they don't know that the way they interpreted it is wrong. So it's really important to talk to our kids about what's going on and how it's impacting them. So talking to them about the transition that they've had to make for kids who haven't been homeschooled or kids who are homeschooled. It's still a big transition, not having their meetup groups and all of these things. So it is important to take that time to talk to our children and to make sure that we're being good role models ourselves in self-care and structure.
Okay, that's a good point. And I also want to expand on something you just said. Sometimes they're not asking the questions, but they are struggling or thinking about these things. What are some of the signs that maybe your child is stressed out? Some things you should be watching for, even if they're not asking those questions.
It's a great question. In children, a lot of times anxiety can present as physical symptoms. So children may be talking more about having belly aches or having a headache or feeling really tired. You can notice some differences in their sleep patterns, in their appetite. So those can all be signals that there's something going on with them. Children can become overly sensitive, crying more, or reverting back to behaviors from a few years ago and regressing a bit. So your first grade student may start to be acting like a baby and want to be held and things like that. And so it's important to be able to look at what's going on here. So in teenagers, it may present more as irritability, which sometimes, just being a teenager is hard anyway. So it's important to notice any of those differences in your child. Of course, attention and concentration difficulties can be there as well. That being said, this is a huge shift for a lot of children. Removing as many distractors as you can from where they're doing their schooling at home is important. That can help boost attention and concentration. But any of those differences can be signs that your child might be struggling with some excessive worry, anxiety, or depression during this time.
So what can we do to help?
There are a lot of things that we can do as parents. And like I mentioned earlier, being a good role model is a great place to start. Practicing good self-care, following CDC guidelines, taking charge of the things that are within our control is a really important thing. Providing some structure at home, laying out the day in a way that's more predictable can help everybody reduce stress. I think it's also important to keep adult conversations and adult worries separate from children. So it's not appropriate to talk to your child about your financial concerns and what's going to happen with your job. Those are things that should be more adult concerns. Kids and teenagers shouldn't have to worry about that.
Well, that's a good point. Can we talk a little bit, too, about socially how hard this can be on kids? We've talked a lot about house party and DJ parties, and I did a Zoom party with some of my friends. But the social interaction for kids in a classroom or at the park or on sports teams is so important, and they're losing that right now.
It really is. And I think talking to our children about that and talking to them about flexibility, it's important to try to have flexibility, not resentment. A lot of people's plans change suddenly. So I know there are a lot of things kids were looking forward to with prom and their graduation and science fair and all of these fun things that were coming up in school. And so it's good to talk to them about that and normalize some of the feelings of disappointment that they have, to say, yeah, that is disappointing. I've been a little disappointed with some of the changes that I have too, but that's okay. Let's try to make the best out of this situation. And that can be really helpful. Reaching out to their friends and trying to have Zoom parties. I know with my daughter's school, they had a Zoom meeting on Monday, and all of the kids were so excited to see each other and see their teacher. And it was actually a lot of fun. And so people are trying to be creative to find ways to stay connected.
Yeah, thinking outside the box. It's definitely the new normal. You know what? I could visit with you for this entire hour. We're going to have you back because every day is changing, and there's really no, end in the near future for a lot of families. Dr. Renardi, thank you so much for your valuable advice today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Coming up next, we're talking about cleaning and disinfecting with essential oils. Stay with us.